Hi everyone, welcome to my book series called Return to the Garden of Eden. The book is quite a large book. I've been spending the last year writing full time to get this work done, and it did all start in 2016, and I'd been thinking about writing it since then, but I didn't get around to it until last year, and it has taken a year. The last book is almost complete. The first three in the series are already on my website. And I'm just showing you a couple of pages here from the first book because I want to give the backstory. I will make a longer video on this for the backstory, but for now I want to show you what I saw when I went around Ireland for the first time in 2016 after being in clinical practice in my acupuncture clinic for about a year and a half after graduation. I went to Ireland and I started in Dublin and I drove a camper car all around the island for 17 days and I followed this trajectory, and then I came a little bit in here, and then I went a little bit in here, then I went back in, and then I went all the way down and I came back out and I flew back home to New Zealand. And when I got home to New Zealand, I looked on the wall and I had this map of Ireland on the wall, and I had this map of the Nei Jing Tu, which is a Daoist painting about inner alchemy, also on the wall, right next to each other. Never noticed it before I left. And then when I got home, I realized that they're the same. And then I realized that my trajectory around Ireland, in fact, was doing the microcosmic orbit Qigong exercise shown in the Nei Jing Tu, but I did that around Ireland. And it really got me thinking, because at the time I was listening to The Wisdom Preserved in Bible and Pyramids, read out by Colleen for Venus on his YouTube channel, and it was a 7-hour reading of all of this very curious Irish history. And one of the chapters was the Bible in Irish book. And so that chapter was actually extrapolated into a further work by his son, Conor McDarry Jr. And in that book, he's basically saying that the Bible is Irish. So how does this all relate to raising the Christ oil? Well, if you know anything about raising the Christ oil, obviously Christ is in the Bible, so it has a little bit to do with the Bible. And what has been shown through other people's work that I've listened to over the years is that, you know, certain words, when you break down the etymological meaning, root word meaning of the word, it will show you the deeper Bible code. And that's where this raising the Christ oil information comes from, because it's the revealed codes, you could say, about the anatomy and the physiological processes of what is happening with the cosmology when the moon comes into your star sign every month. So the thought process for me was, if the raising the Christ oil is in the Bible, and the Bible is an Irish book, and I just did the microcosmic orbit of Ireland, and the microcosmic orbit is also in this Nei Jing Tu, Inner Alchemical painting, which is the same shape as Ireland, what am I dealing with here? What are we missing? So this entire work is devoted to inspecting that theory I had back in 2016 with these two maps on the wall. And since then, for this past year, I've been going around the megalithic sites of Ireland to see if they match up with the Nei Jing Tu. And as you can see here, there's lots of little characters with names doing jobs, and they're actually all in very specific places, because this is actually the human body in profile facing west, just as Ireland is. So up here we have the head, this is the mouth, this is the heart, this is the liver and the digestive organs of the stomach and spleen and gallbladder. This ox and man here ploughing the land is the intestines, and this is the sacrum. And then down here with the twins, a male and female, boy and girl, we have the reproductive energies. So this is essentially all of the ingredients that, oh, and up here, sorry, we have this monk. He's called the blue-eyed foreign monk with his hands up to the heavens, standing by a pool of water. And then there's a big lake up here. There's underground caves, there's mountains, and here there is a Buddha sitting in the heaven, top of the world. And all this is waters below, all the way up the spinal fluid, the cerebral spinal fluid. So this is actually the story, the inner alchemical story of raising the Christ oil within, contained within this Daoist painting that I have started marrying up with the Raising Christ oil biblical information that we already know, seeing the overlaps with the Daoist teachings to get more information. So we've got more tools in the toolbox. So when we're doing the Raising the Christ oil, we know a whole lot more alchemical processes of what is happening in terms of how the organs function in terms of how Chinese medicine views it, and also the more metaphysical functions in terms of the Daoist energy movements, such as the microcosmic orbit, which we utilize that exercise to raise the Christ oil. And if you didn't know that, that's really helpful to do the microcosmic orbit. So what is that? It's basically, we've got the cerebral spinal fluid. It flows up and down the spine and circulates through the brain, and that happens 3 to 4 times per day. And this is the oil, and it carries the seed that is born in the manger at Bethlehem, which is actually the mouth and the stomach, and then it's imbued with essence from the kidneys, and then it starts its journey through the spinal fluid. And when it gets to the very top of the spine, up into the occiput, as we all know, it crosses through the medulla oblongata at the pyramidal complex in the brain, where there's a lot of electromagnetic amplification happening because of the structures in the brain, such as one of the elements in the cerebellum called magnetite, which it's a great magnetic field which encourages electrons to flow through more optimized, more amplified, and then that's all happening up in the brain and also in the spinal cord, the cerebral spinal fluid, during the Raising of the Christ oil period in that 2.1 days when the moon is in your star sign. And so the microcosmic orbit, it actually utilizes a very key thing. And this is one of the really key things that this book really deeply dives into, which is the swallowing of the saliva. It is a part of the microcosmic orbit practice that you build up saliva in your mouth while you're circulating energy up the back of the spine and down the front of the spine. And as that builds up with enough circulations, you start developing what is called a golden elixir in your mouth. And when you've built up enough of that, you actually have to tip your head right back, which you can see here. Ireland actually has her head tipped right back. And then you swallow. And that contributes into the seed quality, the Jesus seed essence. And that essentially, as you circulate that and swallow it and circulate it and swallow it, you're cleansing your body, you're baptizing your waters with this golden elixir, which is carrying the vibration of the seed. And once that has been done enough times, you generate the immortal child, Jesus Christ embryo within yourself that you can then raise up to the next stage. And going through the Daoist writings on their version of the practice, which I am juxtaposing with Raising the Christ oil within, they have split it up into 3 stages. And there's stage 1, 2, and 3, and they're very specific and they're very laid out what they are, this inner alchemical stages. And as I've been practicing, while I've been writing this book for 1 year, practicing every month, I have journaled my way through and noticed that these stages, which have timing, you could say, how many days or how many months, it's very accurate, because what happened to me in those times was in fact exactly what I discovered in the Daoist work. So yeah, it's all very, very interesting, right? So this is what the book is about. And so because it's such a vast topic, and I wanted to create essentially an encyclopedia of alchemy, because for me, I've come into this with a Chinese medicine background. I have the degree in Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and I've done a lot of other modalities along the way. And so I'm starting on the starting block with a head start compared to someone who has never approached even looking at anatomy and physiology or anything. So I wanted to make this work really comprehensive and available for everyone to begin with. So this book 1 is actually all about where to start. So I'm just going to take you through this book. So here's the table of contents. Here's the preface. Here's the introduction. The quest begins is pretty much just me going around Ireland and coming home and discovering what I've just shared with you. And then we get into, excuse me, into the more theoretical Chinese medicine Daoist stuff to prepare ourselves for raising the Christ oil, using the technique of the microcosmic orbit, which I've explained as this energy circulation going up and down the spine, involving swallowing the saliva. And you do that when the moon is in your sign. You're going to amplify your electromagnetic energy. And it does work, and I've been doing it. And so this microcosmic orbit is showing us the meridians, where they are, what are the acupuncture points along the way. And knowing the names of those acupuncture points, it's going to make it easier for the imagination to grasp the inner landscape of the body while you're doing it. So that brings us to the Nei Jing Tu, which is that Daoist painting that we've been looking at. And it translates as inner weaving or inner warp. And this has been used traditionally as a teaching aid for the alchemist, the Daoist alchemist, to visualize their internal landscape of their body, just like the painting. And I've been doing this, and it's really, really helpful, and it's really fun. It makes the human body a lot more interactive, you could say, because you're now seeing that these little characters that are your organs, so each one of those characters represents different organs, doing jobs like digestion or reproduction, or connecting the heart spirit to the Milky Way galaxy, things like that. So that makes the whole process much more easy to apply to your own body. Imagine what your body is doing, and it's an alive being, and it is like the more you pay attention to the fact that it's alive and doing these alchemical processes, you can really start getting more deeply into whether or not your body's in tune and what you need to do to help it get all of this Raising Christos perfected, right? So also in that chapter, I have the explanation of the inner alchemy called Nei Dan, which is the Daoist inner alchemy. There's inner alchemy and there's external alchemy in Daoism. The internal alchemy is what we focus on, and that is yeah, just explaining the stages of what stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. How long is it going to take? So living laboratory, this is where we get into the physical human body based on Chinese medicine principle theory, which is all around the duality of, or the balance of the polarity of yin and yang. Most people have seen that Tai Chi symbol, you know, the black and white circle with the dots. And so that is explained along with many things such as the 4 directions and the 8 directions and cycles of time and cycles in your body, and how things are always in motion, and how things are always observable in nature, such as the sunrise and the sunset. And when we apply these same viewpoints to the inner body, we find that the inside of the human body is no different from its external environment. And this is the Daoist perspective, and this is how they really relate to the inner body and the workings of the inner body. It's no different than, you know, you have rivers running water inside, you have mountains, and you have steam, and you have volcanoes and heat and lightning and thunder, and it's all there happening inside your body, and it's all very alchemical and exciting. So this is what I explain a little bit more about in the cauldrons chapter, which is getting to know the 3 energy centers inside your body, which are called, in Qigong, they're called Dantian. This is the one in the head, the heart, and the lower belly. They're also called cauldrons in ancient Chinese medicine, and also in Irish poetry, there's 3 cauldrons. And in Maori medicine or Maori healing, they call them hearts, the 3 hearts, and they're all in the same place. So getting into what do we do in cauldrons? Well, we do alchemy, of course, and what happens when we're doing basic alchemy. So when we put a pot of water on the stove and we heat it up, and then the water starts getting hot and then boiling, and then it evaporates, and then as it gets further and further away from the pot, it starts to cool down, and then it drops down as droplets, and then that has now involved a 4 elemental cycle of fire warming water, turning it to steam, and then it cooling, and then coming back down to the earth as those droplets. So getting to know the processes or the phase changes of elements within the body. And then the tree of life, this is talking about that God put the tree of life in the Garden of Eden for Adam and Eve. And God created the Garden of Eden for Adam and Eve out of an act of love. He created out of love. But somewhere along the way, as the Bible got changed, that God turned a bit weird. And he went very hierarchical and very punishing. And then there's this whole story of, you know, the tree of good and evil. And I go into what is that, and it's sneaky, in my opinion, creating this kind of, you know, you can have knowledge, but you will die, have the knowledge, and it's all a bit kind of shady. I don't know. You can read that chapter to find out what I'm on about. So the 3 treasures of the tree, this is talking about a Chinese medicine Daoist concept of these 3 vital substances that we have within our body. And I've juxtaposed these 3 substances with biomedicine in terms of Western medicine, just to make it a bit more easy to marry the more poetical Daoist concepts with the anatomy and physiology of body. So I've likened the qi, the breath, to the electricity that runs through our nerves and the peripheral nervous system. And then the Jing, which is the essence, which is actually, all 3 of these actually help form the Jesus Christ seed within. But the essence, the vital essence, it's more to do with the kidney energy, the reproductive energy, and the spinal fluid and the bone marrow and the brain. So that's to do with more like the central nervous system. And then the Jin is the consciousness, and it's flowing through our blood. So it's the blood flow, and what does blood carry? It carries hormones. So learning all about hormones and neurotransmitters and how they're actually flowing through the cerebral spinal fluid, which is the oil that carries the Jesus Christ seed within it, as we're doing the microcosmic orbit, as we're sending it through the crucifixion and the medulla oblongata, through the brainstem into the cave, the tomb of the brain, the Golgotha skull, and as we're raising that oil, we're amplifying its electromagnetic field, and then we're receiving that into the mouth as saliva, swallowing it back in, and refining it and refining it and refining it. And inner alchemy is all about refining and distilling and taking what you've got and then sort of making it better and better each round. So that's why we're doing the microcosmic orbit. So then Chapter 8 is learning about torus fields, another type of tree, because the torus shape is essentially like a tree. It's flowing energy in and out through its roots, flows that through its trunk, out its branches, and as that flows electrons through the trunk of the tree, it's producing a magnetic field. And so learning about how electromagnetic fields in the shape of the torus actually optimize our electron flow, and that helps to amplify our energy. And that's actually how the human body has been designed, structure by structure. It's all very a beautiful design to show that something with a great consciousness created our bodies. So the meridian circuitry system, that is talking about the 12 main meridians, the 12 main meridians that connect to the 12 organs in Chinese medicine, how they flow, which directions they flow in and out of, and then in a general sense, how we can see the whole human body as that tree of life. And some meridians connect to the organs and they flow in the upper limbs of the body and out through the fingertips. And some flow from the organs down through the feet and out through the toes. And so this is the as above, so below concept. And then also going into the 8 extra meridians, which are deeper meridians. And 2 of those we are using in the microcosmic orbit. So it's best to get to know them even more deeply. And the 8 meridians are very much about growth and development and the psychology of that. So when the child is coming of age to certain ages, they will start, breaking away from the parents and doing certain things. And this is all to do with the development and growth of these inner meridians or inner waterways, inner streams. And so the final chapter is the human as a free energy circuitry system. So this is talking about the arrangement of the meridians, which was discussed in chapter 9, and the fact that they are arranged in coils like the trunk rings of a tree, from the core radiating out to the bark, from the inner to the outer, as within so without. And those arrangements are actually very similar to older scalar field devices, and one of them that I have, the multi-wave oscillator, invented in the 1800s, and that has the same ring shape, harmonic resonator. And I have always noticed that the acupuncture meridians were exactly the same as this device, and so that device utilizes a Tesla coil. So I've done some in there to show that the human spine and the brain is basically the center of the Tesla coil, and then the 12 meridians going out from the center around that are basically the primary coil on the Tesla coil. And I've made a kind of a mishmash diagram of the primary and secondary coils of a Tesla coil, and showing how all of that works, and showing that it is just like the design of the human anatomy. So that's book 1. So I'm going to leave it there for this part so I don't talk on for too long. So that's the introduction for what it's about. I will read one of these for each of the books, and each book is dedicated to a certain part of these three pieces that I'm trying to weave together. Not trying, I have done. And then the final part, the part 4, is actually how we're doing the practice, and that's devoted to the practical side of everything. So yeah, I hope you've gotten something out of all of that. And yeah, if you want to have a look at the books, you can check out my website, AnayaScienceWitch.com.